I've been meditating for many years. I'm still working on it. It's an ongoing process. But when I really get into the groove, when I really get into the zone, I recognize that meditation is when the space between your thoughts grows larger than the thoughts between the space. In fact, I was just reading a wonderful old metaphysical book this morning, probably back from the 1920s. And the author described an experience of somebody who at that time had had a near-death experience. And this was a little illuminating to me because, we think that near-death experiences are a new phenomenon, but I guess people have been having them forever. And this fellow documented one back in the 1920s. And this fellow said that he had literally died for 2 hours. And before he was resuscitated, this is what happened to him. He said, you know how, and I didn't know this, but in those days they had radio waves that would beam images in dots. I didn't know they had, it's almost like a fax machine would do it now, but in those days they had some kind of transmission where it's like dots on a paper, like newspapers, pixels, I guess, if you will. And he said, I saw my body as a dense set of these dots, but then who I became was, I went into the space between these dots, and it seemed like the dots were as far away as we consider planets to be from each other. So there was much more space than dots. And I realized in that moment that that's who I truly was, that I'm a spiritual being. From that deep inner perspective, I recognized myself as spirit, but then I would sort of go back and forth, and when I was pulled back into my body for whatever reason, all of a sudden the dots seemed to condense once again, and the dots seemed real, and the space seemed like the illusion. But when I was a spiritual being, I realized that the space was the truth, and the dots were more illusion, or just a relative reality. So in meditation, I think, when you're doing it properly, you're expanding, extending into the space between the dots, and you recognize who you were before you thought you were dots. Now, there's lots of things that people call meditation. They're not really meditation. I teach guided visualization a great deal, and it really works because it gets the mind on a positive tack. And in fact, when I teach a group meditation, I usually begin with a guided visualization. See light coming out of you, or see yourself meeting a master, or, lots of these. But the truth is that that's all, or a mantra, or affirmations, or contemplation. The truth is that all those do, they're like the runway that the plane is using as a platform to take off. And once you take off, there's no more use for the runway. So all of those forms that what people often call meditation are actually just preludes to the moment where you drop into the stillness. And when I'm in that groove, if you will, or that zone, there's complete peace, there's complete clarity. They're not really thoughts. Thoughts may sort of be coming and going somewhere in the periphery of my awareness. But for sometimes just a few moments, sometimes more, there's just isness, there's just beingness, and it's utterly fulfilling. There's no place to go, there's nothing to do, there's nothing to change. It's just pure being. And when people ask me if there's anything I recommend of a spiritual practice, I say I think it's really, really important to start your day and to end your day with some kind of meditative practice, whether it's TM or you do your yoga, or you do your prayer, or your Tai Chi, or affirmations, or whatever takes you into that meditative space. Some people use music, or art, or journaling. But 20 minutes at the beginning of the day will make a huge difference in your whole day. Some of you might be old enough to remember Wonder Bread commercials. When I was a kid growing up, they were advertising Wonder Bread, which is basically just flour with some vitamins thrown in. I don't know if they still make it, but that's what it was. And they would say that the Wonder Bread, that the first 5 years are the formative years. And what you do in the first 5 years of your life makes a big difference for the rest of your life. So they said you should eat Wonder Bread during those years because it's going to give you a strong foundation. Now, holistic health people might not agree with that, but the idea is sound that the first 5 years of your life are formative. And I would say the first 5 minutes of your day are also formative, or the first 20 minutes, I would say, of your day are formative. So for many, many years, the first thing I do when I wake up is I'll sit up in bed or I'll go to my altar and I'll just sit and I'll do my best to still my mind. I'll do my best to think positive thoughts. I'll do my best to go into silence. And I consciously attune myself to the divine as a platform for my day. And I have to tell you, folks, that the days that I don't do it, I miss it because you kind of have to go back and play catch-up ball, which is harder than doing it at the outset. It's easier to calm your mind before you get upset than to try to calm your mind after you're upset. And so I recommend to folks, don't jump up and do your email, don't jump up and do your voicemail, don't jump up and do your calls. Sit up and talk to God, whatever that means for you. And if you don't believe in God, just sit with the universe. It's the same thing. I also recommend taking a meditation break sometime during the day, even if you're busy. If you can find 5-10 minutes just to rest and relax and breathe and think of spirit, and it'll be like starting your day over. So your afternoon ends and you have a new segment, and your late afternoon, your evening is a whole new life. And when I can find the time to do that, boy, my whole day shifts. And I tell people, even if you're really busy, you can find your way into the men's room or the ladies' room and close that door and nobody knows what you're doing in there. And you sit, you do some breathing exercises, or you meditate, or you pray. That's your little cubicle. The monks in the old days used to have cubicles that they went to. Well, if you work in a corporation, go to your cubicle, whatever it takes. And then I also recommend people meditate for at least a little while before you go to sleep. I think it's important to undo your day. We all carry stress from our day, thoughts for the better and thoughts for the worse. And if you don't meditate before you go to sleep, what will often happen is you will have to work out your subconscious issues from your day in your sleep. And that's when you have dreams of a big pepperoni chasing you down the street or some weird thing that's left over from the day. However, I have found that if you just take a few minutes to read something uplifting, which is some music, pray, meditate before you sleep, even just 5 or 10 minutes, it has a way of disentangling the momentum from your day, and you make a clean break. And then when you go into sleep, you sleep much better, you will need less sleep, and you'll have dreams that are on a higher level than if you had to work out subconscious issues. And you may even have guidance from spiritual masters or guides or whoever you meet in your sleep state, and it'll be a far more positive sleep experience than if you hadn't done it. And you'll feel better when you wake up. So I can't imagine a life without some kind of meditation, to tell you the truth. One analogy I use is, you know, in the old time, deep sea divers, they would send somebody down in a big suit and they'd have an oxygen line to the boat that would be pumping oxygen to them. Well, if one of those oxygen lines got twisted or crimped or cut, you're out of luck because there's no oxygen. You basically never make it to the surface. So my belief is that when you're meditating or praying, you're actually establishing and using your pipeline to the divine, which contains all the life-giving nutrients that will sustain you through a day of life on earth. And God knows days of life on earth can be challenging. There's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of stress, and a lot of weirdness, and a lot of dissension. And so it almost behooves anybody who wants to be a light worker or a peace worker these days to make your first commitment to stay connected to light and peace. You cannot change the world if you have not changed inside. I mean, even Jesus said, do not say to somebody, let me take the speck out of your eye when you have a log in your own. It's a pretty good parable. So if you're angry and you're upset and frustrated and stressed, how much of a voice for peace can you be in the planet? We all want to make peace on the world. Who wouldn't? The question is, how effective are you? And if you're fighting somebody or making somebody wrong or feel victimized, you're in no position to create peace. So the real way to create peace is from inside out, and I think meditation is a way to do that. Then you become like, a friend of mine used to call it, you get your MBU degree, you become a mobile blessing unit, which means that as you walk through life, you just exude an energy that blesses and lifts people. And I remember walking through an airport in San Francisco one day, and I was kind of rushed and harried, as are most of the people there. And I saw a fellow walking toward me, and there was nothing special about him. He didn't have robes, he wasn't a guru, he was just a normal guy. But he just had a real soft look on his face, and he looked relaxed, and he was happy, he was looking around, and just looking at this guy helped me to feel peaceful. In that moment, my shoulders just let go, and I took a breath. I went, okay, everything's all right. And I don't know who that man was. I'll never see him again, or maybe I will, but I wouldn't remember him if I saw him again. But there was just something about his energy that was peaceful, and I caught it by contagion. And he was a world peace worker, whether he knew it or not. I doubt he was trying. I think he was just in a good space. But since that time, it's been my aspiration to be like that, regardless of my words or my deeds, just to exude an energy that's healing to the planet. And if I can do it from inside out, then my job is well done. And I firmly believe that meditation is the pipeline through which that true peace comes.